Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lexi and today I am finally talking about my Kundalini Awakening. I am finally going to do the story time on my Kundalini Awakening. So apologies for mentioning it in my videos and never really doing a story time on it, but I intuitively kept holding off because quite frankly, the minute I was talking about it and the minute I accepted that I was talking about it, like I was still kind of going through it. And every time I thought, okay, maybe we're coming to an end, I was still reaching like a lot of like full circle moments. So I kind of just kept leaving it and intuitively just kept feeling like not yet, not yet. And this is probably the first time that I felt ready to, like, I feel like I've kind of like moved past a lot now, and I feel like it's finally time to talk about it because I can now look with hindsight and I can see the bigger picture and I can really explain it properly to you with a better understanding of it. So that's why we're talking about it now. If you guys are watching and you chose because I did a poll, if some of you guys don't know, I did a poll on whether to talk about the Kundalini Awakening or my starseed regression story. I'm still going to talk about my starseed regression story. It's just going to be like maybe in a couple of weeks, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. So I will still talk about that if you chose that. So before I get into the video, I am going to have timestamps for the disclaimers and what a Kundalini Awakening is before I begin. But I would like you guys to listen to the disclaimers just because I'll just get into the disclaimers now, but I would like you guys to hear that just in case I trigger anyone or anything like that throughout the video. I want to make sure people understand what this video is going to entail before I begin. So getting straight in and cutting straight into the disclaimers, the first thing that I want to say is this is going to be a very emotionally heavy and deep video. This is not going to be a video that's very love and light. I know sometimes when we talk about ascensions and stuff, they can be very blissful, and to be honest with you, a lot of them can be, but in regards to the Kundalini Awakening as well, I didn't just go through the Kundalini Awakening, I went through a very strong dark night of the soul through that Kundalini Awakening, which is a lot deeper than a normal one. And through that there was a lot of shadow work done and a lot of realizations that stemmed from things that were very traumatic for me. So this is going to be very heavy. So if you guys are not feeling like you're emotionally ready, because I am going to like dump in this video and I don't want you guys to feel the weight of that. So if you guys don't feel like you're ready to hear anything that in depth, or you're not ready to like be triggered in a way of like certain things, I would say maybe watch this video at a different time. I wouldn't be offended if you do, just because I don't want anyone to watch it if they're feeling low and then, you know, have the weight of what I'm about to talk about on them as well. Because I say it to my friends as well, if I'm going to tell you something in depth or something like that, I want you to be in an okay space before I offload, you know what I mean? So that is what I wanted to make sure. And second of all, trigger warning, I will probably talk about certain things like there will be mention of like abuse of some sorts in this video, and there will also be mention of EDs in this situation. I'm not going to go into depth about them, but they will be mentioned, so I want to say that before I get into the video as well. The third thing that I want to talk about is anyone, like you, probably everybody watching this has gone through an ascension or an awakening, and you guys know that can like really like take a toll on your energy levels or your emotions and can be a little bit erratic. And I have had, like, you know, sometimes when I've talked about certain things, I have had people say to me like you know, mention things like, are you sure you weren't like bipolar or this or that? And I want to basically state at the beginning of this video, I throughout like the whole process of it, I was very much on top of my health, like checking on my health, and I, you know, went to the doctors and things like that just to like check up, like I would suggest anyone does. And I was physically healthy, emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, and I'm, you know, extremely healthy right now. So do not worry if something sounds a bit like, oh, that's a bit much, like I'm all good. I just wanted to state that. Okay, so to start my story time, I really want to do a really quick I want to do a really quick recap of basically, for the people that don't know about my spiritual journey or don't know much about me, if you've joined and are new or you've just fallen across this video, the Kundalini Awakening was not the start of my spiritual journey at all. I grew up very open to spirit and the spirit world. My mother, I had psychic abilities at a young age. I would see spirit like when I was younger, but I wouldn't really acknowledge it or talk about it. I was very fearful, very fearful, but I had a complete fascination in the occult and things like that from like age 9. Like, I was really open to spirit. I would, you know, it was just a part of me. And my mother would always like ring psychics and have psychics home. Very aware of these things very, very early. And I started going on my first kind of like awakening, ascension, when I was 15 and 16, which I'll probably do a whole story time of my full awakening before the Kundalini. But I started ascending when I was like 15, 16. I was waking up to like what star seeds were, the universe was, and through my age of like 17, I was learning, you know, a lot of things like astrology and palmistry and all of that. And then when I was 18, I went through my first dark night of the soul, which lasted for 3 years, which was basically me living out all of my shadow attributes and meeting a lot of people, significant people in that time, that were triggering a lot of wounds in order for me to be aware of them and heal them. So that lasted for 3 years. And then when I was 20, 21, I kind of came out of that, and that's where the story time of all of this begins. So I'm now going to talk about the Kundalini process, but before I talk about the actual ascension of how it happened, I want to take you back to a couple of months prior, just because I truly believe the universe was kind of clearing out my life and clearing out things, preparing me for this Kundalini awakening. So I want to show you guys how everything came to pass. So if I'm talking about something you're like, wait, this isn't Kundalini awakening, I'm only mentioning it because something's gonna come full circle later. That's basically why I'm talking about it. So to start the story time off, I have to take you back to the fall winter time of 2019. And for those of you that are aware, like, I started my self-love journey and really working on myself, putting in boundaries in regards to myself, and cutting a lot of people off and things like that. And I'm not going to go deep into that because I have a story time on that. If you want to watch it, it's on my spirituality playlist. I'll put a photo of it there so you can find it. So at this particular point in my life, I was very much choosing myself, putting in boundaries with people, and a lot of friends that I had were starting to fall away. And they, to be honest with you, I cut off a lot of friends before that anyway, but this was just like remnants of people that were starting to kind of like fall away. And certain like love interests that I'd been interested in, or like had like kind of gone round the merry-go-round, like round in spirals, they were starting to fall away. And I was working out, I was really, you know, looking after my body, and my whole taste buds and things has changed. Like the food that I was eating, like there were certain foods I couldn't eat anymore. I went vegetarian, like I was clearing out certain things that I was doing that just didn't relate to me anymore. And I was really working on like my insecurities, because I was a really insecure person. I used to wear like a lot of makeup and things, and I purposefully was not wearing makeup because I wanted to learn to love my natural face. And I grew my eyebrows back, which I talk about all the time. I had no eyebrows because I'd shaved them off and they never grew back, and I manifested them back. So there was a lot going on. There was a lot of changes taking place as a result of me literally choosing to love myself. Like, there was so much that was being undergone, you know. And around Sagittarius season of 2019, I know it was like mid-November to end of November, and I remember saying to myself, this is a really good time to be manifesting. It's Sagittarius season, like best time. Like I remember saying that, so I know it was around the Sagittarius season. But I was very, very structured. Like I'd wake up at 4:30 in the morning, I would work out, I would meditate, I would, you know, I would do all of that. And right before food, I would sit at my altar and I would light a candle, like a white candle, and I would write a gratitude list. So I'd write everything that I was grateful for in that moment. So I was doing my gratitude lists, and then I would basically script. You guys know, majority of you will probably know what scripting is, but I would write down basically the life I'm living right now. I would write it down on a piece of paper, and I would script it as if I already had it. So to give you guys, to be honest with you, I said it so many times every single day that I kind of remember what it was. And it was like, I'm the best version of myself physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Money flows to me easily and effortlessly. I'm abundant with money, and I have enough money to pay all of my bills and to spend on luxuries. And I said, I was scripting, and I hadn't started my YouTube at the time. I knew I was going to, but I hadn't started it yet. And it was like, I work for myself. and I have my YouTube channel where I reach people all across the world and I help them find their light and heal parts of themselves and guide them towards that true potential, or something along those lines, I would say. And I would script that every day. And I would say it 3 times. So I would script it over like 1, 2, 3, 3 times, and then I would blow the candle out as if it was like my birthday, I was making a wish, and then I would watch the smoke go, and I would imagine it like kind of going into the air to like manifest my reality in. And it was a really nice time. Like when I look back at the time, I just smile because it was just like a really optimistic and happy time for me. And I was still kind of insecure about some things. I was insecure like about my smile and things like that. And I remember having like a vision of me, because all of my photos, like people used to, like everyone used to say like, why are you so moody in photos, why did you pout? Because I was always pouting because I hated my smile and I hated my chubby cheeks. So I had this vision of me on Instagram. It was like an Instagram photo. I remember like having the vision and holding the vision of me smiling for a photo, like literally me like smiling for a photo. And it's just little things like that that I was basically trying to like bring in. Another thing I want to add as well, at this time I was working really hard in my job that I had at the time. I worked for a clothing, I basically worked in like a store, kind of like a Walmart, like a Tesco, Morrison's, like a Walmart type thing, where there's like food and basically it's got everything in there, like, you know, gardening things and everything. But I worked for kind of like a separate company within that place, and it was called should I say it? Oh yeah, I can say it. It was called Nutmeg. It was called Set. And basically I was just in charge of like the clothes and the makeup. So I would do like makeup orders, look after clothes and stuff like that. So I was just taking up a lot of shifts to save money, because at that time I wasn't driving. I didn't have like a car or anything like that, and all of my money, I was literally living off like scraps, because all of my money I was putting in my savings for supposedly what I thought was going to be my car, my first car, and my driver's license. So I was just stacking my money up. Like I intuitively know I needed to do it, and I was stacking all of my money up, and everything was structured in place. I was manifesting, everything was going perfectly, you know what I mean? I had this newfound love for self. I was, you know, I was releasing weight from my body, and I felt healthier, and I felt good, and I was learning to love myself without heavy makeup and things like that. And everything was just like in a really good kind of place for the first time in a while, because anyone knows when you choose to love yourself and you choose to start a self-love journey, it's a very beautiful time. You learn to fall in love with yourself, and it really was that for me. So everything's structured, everything's in place. I'm a very fixed person, so at this point I'm very used to my routine. And all of a sudden, I know it very well, I'm Plutonian ruled, I know when there's a shift coming. I felt this shift coming towards the end. It was basically the eclipse, the Capricorn eclipse that was in December of 2019. It was around that time I knew there was a shift coming, because my energy kind of like shifted, and I knew I was about to start my YouTube, and I was very aware that like that was like the next path. But up until that point, I have psychic foresight, so I'm able to kind of see timelines and be able to hop onto them. I've always been able to do that, and what I was doing was hopping onto another timeline. But all of a sudden, I could no longer see this timeline in front of me. Like I could no longer see where I was going. It was almost like I was still walking, and I was still like intuitively aware that certain things were going to commence. Like I was going to work for myself. I was, you know, I was going to start my YouTube, but like it was almost as if the path ahead of me was covered in fog. Like I couldn't see where I was going, and I started to just feel very uncertain, and I didn't like that. You know, I liked back then, I don't really care anymore, but back then I liked to know where I was headed, and I liked to have my feet on the ground and know every possible outcome. And all of a sudden I can no longer access what's in front of me anymore. I can't see that, and that was scary to me. And what happened around that time was a love interest, like a person that I had a kind of like situationship with, came back into my life at that time, and I'd cut everybody off. I was on this self-love journey, and me putting in boundaries had everybody running away. No one really wanted anything to do with me then. And this person kind of came back, and they always played about with me and treated me really badly in the past. And this person came back and all of a sudden was like, I wouldn't say they were treating me very well, but they were like for the first time wanting a relationship with me and wanting all of these things with me. And I did entertain it for a little bit, but I was still, you know, very, what's the word? I was still very skeptical about this person, because they'd hurt me many times in the past, and this person hadn't long come out of another relationship anyway. So I was just kind of like, okay, like, you know, we'll just kind of like see how it goes. If this person's meant to be with me, they will be with me. If not, spirit will show me why they're not really supposed to be in my life. And this person was very much telling me, like, my focus is on you, like, I'm actually putting in more effort than usual, but it wasn't enough. I hope that makes sense. Like, they still weren't treating me in a way that I feel that I deserve. Like, they still weren't, they were looking at me a little bit like that healer or somebody. They were taking me for granted. That's the word I'm looking for. They were taking me for granted. And it didn't basically take long before that particular person started to kind of try in their old tricks and stuff like that. And I basically saw through it, and very quickly, like, it did trigger me. It triggered some emotions within me, but because I, you know, had this newfound love for myself and things like that, I was able to basically cut this person off straight away and not fall back to kind of like old ways of like, where did I go wrong? What did I do? Like, I knew it wasn't a me thing. I knew it was a them thing. And I feel like that was a test personally before I moved into this new phase of my life, and I was able to kind of step away from this particular person and move on from this person. And it was around that time, spirit, after that particular situation and I cut this person off, spirit started showing me rainbows all of the time. And I'll insert the photos. It was more than once. I was always being shown, I was going for walks with my friends and I was being shown rainbows, like, a lot, like, all the time. And I took that as if, like, I took it personally, the way I intuitively read all these rainbows being shown to me was, I found the pot of gold at the red at the end of the rainbow, and I was moving on to a new phase. It was almost like the storm's over, that chapter's over, rainbow out, now we're moving on to a new phase. That's how I personally understood that, and I felt it. Like, I intuitively felt like I was moving into this new phase in my life. And the reason I knew that is because whenever I'm ending like a particular shift, I don't know if you guys get it as well, but when I end like a particular chapter in my life, I feel very content. And it's usually when there's not a lot of people around me, and at that time I literally had like 2 friends and my sister who I hanged on with. Like, that was literally it. And you know, there was no love interest. Like, that was the last person, and they just gone as well. So I really was just leaving that chapter kind of like behind, and I just felt really content and really like, I knew I was moving into a new space. I just knew in my brain. And one thing that I like to do when that happens is I like to look out my window. I have a skyline, and I'm surrounded by like beautiful hillsides and forests and the ocean and stuff, so I love to just look out my window and watch the birds and just like look and be like, wow, I'm on earth, like, this is so cool. And I have just a contentment for just being in the moment, and that's where I very much was mindset wise at that time. It was about February, end of February 2020. That's where I was at. And even though I couldn't quite see where I was headed, I knew that I was moving into this new phase, and I knew I was about to start my YouTube. And I was very much like telling my friends at that point, like, by the end of this year, I'm not going to be working in my old job. I'm going to be working for myself, and my YouTube's going to take off, and it's going to be great. And like, I was telling everybody. March 2020, I think we all know what happened then. That was when the pandemic truly began, and everything was like being shut down. Everyone was going into lockdown. And I, at that particular point, I don't know whether they call it in other countries, but in the UK we call them essential workers, people that worked in stores, people that worked in like things that needed to be, you know, still worked. I hope that makes sense. Like, you know, like, I don't know who's an essential worker, like bin men and things like that. I was considered in my job, even though I didn't work on anything to do with food or anything like that, I was considered an essential worker. It was basically my job not wanting us to be paid furlough, because a lot of people would be paid furlough where they got paid by their job but they didn't come into their job. Our basically department didn't want to do that for us, so they were making us come in. So it was around that time, and my job just became harder and harder to stay at, to be honest with you. Like, when the lockdown went down, all public transport stopped, so I was finding it really hard to get into work. And you weren't allowed to like be with other people from other households, so there was police literally like on the street, so I couldn't like ask somebody to give me a lift into work. So it was a really hard, you know, it was hard for me to get into work. And on top of that, which I guess was like another test of like commitment to self, the job I was working at didn't pay really good money. Like I wasn't making very good money at all, and I was only trained, of course, to I was more of like the makeup girl, the clothes girl. That was the only thing I was trained to do. And the people for the actual store, because like I said, we were in like another department, the people for the actual store were earning triple the amount of what people in my department were working for. Like they were earning triple the amount, like they were earning a lot of money, and we were just basically on a really small wage. Like it just, you know, and they were still making us come in, even though we weren't essential workers, for this money that just wasn't, you know, very good. And they were basically making us do the jobs and stand next to the people that were earning triple the amount. They were making us do them jobs while earning not very much. And this was like the moment where I started to like look at my self-worth and be like, am I really going to stay in this job that I bust my ass off and that I've worked at for so long and worked so hard to kind of move up in? Am I really going to stay here and earn this money while everybody around me, people younger than me, are earning triple the amount? And like they wouldn't pay us, give us a pay rise or anything like that. They wouldn't have us join them and work for them. Like they wouldn't do that. And I was like, what are they taking me for? Like, what are they taking me for? And I had that kind of realization, like, oh wow, I've outgrown this job. Like I'm not going to accept this anymore. Like I'm going to leave. And I was having these ideas, and spirit would come to me like, it's time to leave. It's time to leave. And I was just like, oh no, because even though it was still security, it was still money going into my bank account. So I was just like no, like I can't, like I can't possibly leave. Like I need the security. And I remember shuffling my cards, asking spirit, like, what do I do, what do I do? And spirit, the card that came out, there was two cards that came out. I shuffled my angel cards, the Dream Virtue angel cards, and the card that came up was time to go, meaning like it's time to flee, it's time to flee the nest. You're not meant to be here anymore. Like you've outgrown this situation. Can't you see the universe is pulling you away? You can't even get into work. Like it's time to leave. And then the other card that I pulled was the animal spirit, you know, the wild unknown oracle. I pulled the tarantula, and the message of the tarantula and the passage of the book was something like, you must make a really big decision, but the tarantula knows that you are going to make the right one, and something like that. And I was just like, oh wow, like this is really happening. And I could see the universe was pulling me away from everything that I knew, and very much answering my manifestations at this point. But I was just kind of like, oh god, like this is such a big leap, like oh my god. And I ended up finally working, like putting my notice in, but I don't know if it's like this in jobs everywhere else, but I still had to work like a month's notice. So I had a month left at my job that I had to work. So in that time, it was when we were in like full lockdown, and this is when I guess the Kundalini Awakening began to start. The full ascension didn't come yet, but this is when ascension symptoms really started to like kick in. So like I said, I was like very structured. I'd wake up at 4, I'd work out, you know, and all of a sudden that just like dissolved, and I had no control over that anymore, because spirit kept telling me to let go of that routine because it wasn't going to suit me in the new phase of my life. But I didn't want to let go, because that's how I controlled like my weight, that's how I controlled everything. Like I didn't want to let go. And spirit were like, you can still work out, you can still do all of these things, but like you're too structured, and there's going to be a big, you know, like crumbling of that, and you need to be like prepared for it. Like you need to be more lenient, you need to be more open. And I was just like, oh, like I didn't want to do it. I wasn't really listening, because I can be disobedient when I really am stuck in my ways. I'm a very fixed person. Yeah, so I was not listening. And then that's when like spirit were like waking me up at like 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and it kept saying to me every time I woke up, time doesn't exist, time doesn't exist. And I was like, oh, you know what I mean? Because I was just like, I wanted to be waking up early and doing all of that, but if I'm waking up at 1 full of energy and can't go back to sleep, well, that's not, you know, that's not gonna work. Like I'm not gonna be able to like work out at 4 in the morning because I'm gonna be tired. So spirit made sure that my routine was well and truly messed up, so that I was no longer in that routine. So I just like allowed it to kind of crumble around me, to be honest with you. And I was just having a lot of like little enlightenment periods, if that makes sense. Like I was, you know, I was on my own a lot, and when I was working my notice, I was only working 4 days a week. They kind of cut all of my hours down, so I had a lot of time to like reflect and connect with spirit and stuff like that. So I was really coming to a lot of realizations in that time. So in this period where I'd handed in my notice, that was where I started my YouTube channel. I tried starting it earlier around the December time, and spirit literally showed me April, and there was an eclipse. Was it an eclipse? I don't know whether it was an eclipse or like a new moon that was like really significant for me in April, and that was when they wanted me to start my channel and film my first video. So you can go back to my channel and watch, like that's when I started my channel. My YouTube channel is an Aries Sun, Sagittarius Moon, Scorpio Rising. So yeah, so I started my channel, and then spirit, I asked spirit because I couldn't see where I was headed, and I knew this ascension was going on, and I wanted a little bit of comfort and structure. So I was like, where am I headed to? Like, what's next? Like, where am I going? Like, everything's falling away. Insecurities are falling away, jobs are falling away, people are falling away, like everything's falling away. Where am I headed to? And spirit basically showed me the 7 chakras in my body, and they basically show this kind of like golden light going up through the root chakra up to my crown chakra, like a complete ascension up through my chakras. And I did not look at that vision and go, Kundalini Awakening. I didn't. I was aware of what Kundalini Awakenings were, but I never really researched them because I like to experience something and talk about it instead of read about it and talk about it. So I never really like looked into it much. So I just thought, oh, like I'm doing work on my chakras, and they basically were like shadow. So I thought, oh, shadow work. Okay, I'm doing shadow work. Like, oh, okay, well, I'll just roll up my sleeves and get into it. So the whole time that I was working my notice, I was doing deep like shadow work. And the thing is about the shadow work is my whole childhood was dark. It was heavy. My whole childhood was really heavy. I saw a lot of things, and a lot of things that I was aware that I could not have processed because I was very young. And on top of that, my ancestral karma, like the stories I've been told from the people that were alive, and you know, even back through that, like it's very dark to the point that I don't even think I'm going to be able to talk about it on video for YouTube because they'll take it down. It gets really deep and dark, and there was just like a lot, and I knew that that was something that I was going to have to unpack and work through. And I guess I kind of had that time on my hands now to really work on, you know, my chakras and stuff like that. One thing I want to add before I even continue, because I realized I've forgotten to talk about it. Remember I said I was saving all that money for my car and all of that? Well, I basically said to spirit before I put my notice in for my job, like, how am I going to afford to live when I'm not having money coming in? And they said to me, you have all this money like in your bank account. And I said, but that's for my car, like that's for my driving lessons. And they said, well, driving lessons are shut down right now, you can't even have driving lessons right now. And I was like, so all that money I'd saved, I was now living off. I want to say that because I had no income coming in. I don't want to like leave a patch out and people like, how is she making money? I was living off of my savings that I had saved up, which was enough for basically a car and driving lessons and everything on top of that. Basically probably like a year's worth of like maintaining a car and everything I had saved up. I knew, she knew, I was being prepped. Like I feel like I was being prepped for this situation. Like that's why I wanted to mention all of that at the beginning, because I was being prepped. So I decided to roll up my sleeves after I'm being shown my chakras basically being kind of rinsed out by this gold energy, and I knew that it was shadow work, and I decided to start working through my chakras and working through any shadow attributes that I could tap into. So I decided that I was going to keep myself open to how to do it, because I never really attempted to do deep shadow work before, only lighter shadow work. So I sat in my bed and I went into a deep meditation. I called on my spirit guides and I asked them to lead the way and show me what needed to be done in regards to my chakras. And basically what they did, I started with my root chakra. So I made the root chakra the purpose for the meditation. That lasted for literally 3 days straight. Like for 3 days I was working on my root. Going back to my childhood self, and I was reliving everything that I'd kind of been through, which was, you know, heavy, very heavy. And I was basically made aware of certain things that I had kept subconsciously hidden, because even though I have really good memory and I usually remember a lot, there was a lot of things that I was being shown that I didn't even quite remember, or like had a very vague remembrance of. I just completely forgot until I was reminded of it. And those were things, so I was more so being enlightened in certain phases of my life, especially the deep parts. Like, this is something that's causing you to, you know, not feel safe in your physical body, and this is something that you're still holding on to and grieving, and you haven't grieved. And there was a lot of enlightenment coming through. And especially with the first two lower chakras, which was my root chakra and my sacral chakra, it was more just like enlightening of what I needed to like unpack and work through, if that makes sense. But the real big change that I want to focus on, I'm not going to go through like shadow work and stuff like that. I'm just going to like tell you guys what I was doing before and what I believe caused my Kundalini awakening. I got to my solar plexus, and this is the part that I want to talk about, where I kind of hit a bit of a breakthrough. Like I said, I'd always been insecure. I'd always been I always felt unworthy. I never felt confident. I let people walk all over me. I never asserted myself. Like, there was a lot of wounds in regards to my solar plexus. And I was going back through childhood, and I was like going back to points where I was like bullied, or in friendships where I was spoken to badly, and people put me down because I attracted a lot of it because I had low self-worth. I was changing those memories and standing up for myself, and you know, I was being made aware and enlightened of how I almost wore a mask to other people, like to keep myself dim, to keep myself small. I didn't want people making fun of me because I was psychic, and I didn't want people talking down on me about it, and I wanted to fit in. And there was a big mask that I was wearing, which kept me hidden from people. I was being made aware of, like, it kept me not being able to connect with people properly because they didn't know me. And that's why I always felt lonely. That's why I chose to be on my own a lot, because no one understood me, because I wasn't showing people who I was. I was out of self-protection, being somebody else. And it was something I picked up actually when I was in my teens. And this was something I picked up in my teens, and I can tell you, like, the minute I started doing it, I actually fell upon a Nicki Minaj quote. It was a Nicki Minaj quote, and it said something like, when you don't make moves and when you don't climb up the ladder, everybody hates you because you're not competition. And then I went along the lines of like, but when you do start to climb up that ladder and make moves, people like go against you and try to attack you and like pull you off the ladder. Something along those lines it was. And I realized, like, I had this epiphany when I was like, this is 2011, so I would have been 13. I think I was 13. I had this epiphany, like, if I portray a role, no one will know the real me. This is so Mars and Scorpio of me to ever think of, like, but I was like, no one will ever know the real me, and that way I can just move about in silence, and I can keep myself safe, and also people don't know what to attack because they don't really know the real me. And I remember thinking of it, and I was like, and if I do that, then people will get lazy around me because they'll think I'm like dumb and ditzy and like I don't know what's going on, and then they'll start just showing their real selves to me anyway because they'll think I'm none the wiser. And I realized this. Keep myself dim, keep myself hidden, keep my light kind of like hidden in a way, and be this funny person, because not only will it have people just like me for being that person, but also like I said, if people want to like make moves or talk about me or whatever, they'll be more prone to doing it in front of me because they'll think I won't be able to know what they're up to. And I hid behind that mask, guys. Like, I literally hid behind that mask and hadn't for years, like complete years, and I didn't even realize that I was still holding on to that version, which was a mask. And through that mask, I then adopted traits of like mirroring what other people wanted to see of me. When I started college, when I started going through my dark night of the soul, you know, in college they were really like, you know, your eyebrows are really bushy, wax them. Like, that's why I had no eyebrows for a long time, because they kept going on about how bad my eyebrows were, so in the end I just ended up like, and I would draw them on, and they really made you like insecure when because I went to college doing beauty therapy and skin therapy, and you know, it was like, don't wear leggings on, like they don't look flattering on you, or like They didn't say that to me, they said that to other people, but they would, you know, say to me like, because I'm like anemic, so sometimes my skin will go like a bit of a weird color. And I remember one of my tutors being like, oh Alexia, have you had a fake tan before? Like, it will even out your skin and you'll just have a nicer glow and you won't look so tired. And like, you know, they'd say these things to me. So anything that would please people I would do. So I was looking away for people and I was acting away for people, and I lived behind this mask. And this is a big realization I had in regards to my solar plexus, and basically I, being aware of the mask, kind of pulled it off, and I really didn't care to kind of like fit into that mold anymore at all. And when I was going like back into work that week, I remember like there was just a part of me that just couldn't fake to like just fake nice for other people's happiness, you know what I mean? Like, if someone's gonna say something that I don't like or whatever, I'm just gonna have to say it. And I, again, like I hid my spirituality a lot, and no one in my work knew that I was psychic or anything like that. So I started being very open with it and just saying it out loud and not caring what other people thought. And there was this one guy in like the warehouse, and like he always used to make like really misogynistic and sexist jokes, and out of awkwardness, like it's just me and him in the warehouse, like I would just be like, ah, like didn't find it funny at all. And I could no longer wear this mask of like people pleasing anymore. Like I remember just looking at him, he said something really offensive, I just looked at him, I was like, that is really not funny. Like, well, who do you think you are? Like speaking to me like that. Like I remember his face, he was like, because I was known as like this cute like, ah, Lexi, like, and I'm finally like, don't talk to me like that, don't feel comfortable saying those things to me, like, ew. And there was just a really big shift and change in that time, and I felt like myself, I felt really confident, I felt happy, I felt like I was truly being seen. And all of these illusions were falling away. And it was around that time I took a photo finally smiling, which was a manifestation, as I said, from the December. Like I finally smiled for a photo, and I just felt really happy and free-spirited because I was being made aware of these traits and everything, and they were coming out, and I just felt like really kind of like liberated in a way. Even though I was only scratching the surface of shadow work, I, you know, I just felt lighter, I felt better, and yeah, those memory changes like worked, and I felt more like myself. So anyway, I continued to do the shadow work. I'd completely finished my notice now. I left my job, and I was basically living off savings, and I was just pumping out content like literally 5 days a week on YouTube. And I was like trying to set up so that I could do personal readings, because I was starting to be asked about personal readings at the time. So I basically was continuing the shadow work, heart chakra, throat chakra. I was continuing to do that. And then this one particular day, I'd done my heart chakra, I'd done everything that I felt I needed at that moment in time, or anything that I could do in that part of, in that energetic state of me. I felt like I'd done everything that needed to be done, and it was time to work on my third eye and my crown chakra. Now, I even thought about brushing over my third eye and crown chakra. The reason I thought about doing that was because I was already psychic. I never experienced a block in my third eye and my crown chakra. I'd always channeled energies, and I was always top heavy. So I almost was like, I don't really need to put an emphasis, but I guess I'll just kind of like go over it, because Spirit did show all the chakras. But instead of like dedicating a couple of days of just like completely focusing on one particular chakra, I decided that I was going to do my third eye and my crown chakra at the same time. Kill two birds with one stone, like just really focus on that and just see what Spirit had to say. And I honestly thought that this was going to be the lightest one. I thought this was going to be a very easy one. I thought it was going to be over, and you know what I mean, I didn't think that anything was going to come of it at all. So the actual day that I did this, I'm sure it was like the end of June, I think it was. And funnily enough, when I was like looking back at Instagram photos and stuff like that, because I was scrolling through my Instagram to see the parts and how I like shifted and stuff like that, to see if I could like jog my memory before I did the video, the day that I actually had the real kind of like surge of energy and the chakras and all of that, and the dark night of the soul began, the day that I started to do that, I actually posted a photo of myself, and I captioned it. I'll post the photo there. The caption was, "It's time to butterfly," with a butterfly emoji. And I didn't even realize until I was looking back that I'd done that, which is just very fitting for the situation. But yeah, I sat in my bed, and this particular time I sat up. All the other times I was laying down, but this time I sat up. It was almost like I wanted my spine and my chakras to be like up, you know what I mean? Like I literally sat up in my bed like this. And I'm focusing on my third eye and my crown chakra, and for the most part, like as it began, I wasn't being taken back to childhood or anything like that. I was actually being taken to I was being shown visions of like what the universe is and how we're all connected, and it wasn't any vision that I hadn't seen before. This was something spirit was showing me from like literally age 16, so nothing that I was being shown was very like groundbreaking or anything like that. Like I was very aware it was a beautiful meditation, a beautiful thing that I was being shown, but it wasn't like anything that was anything new to me, if that makes sense. I basically started tripping even though I took no substance. Like the only way I can describe this meditation was a trip, except I wasn't tripping out. I had not taken anything at all. And then I was kind of shown a fear that I had in regards to like my higher chakras, which I guess was a fear that I had in regards to my spirituality and my psychic gifts and my belief of why we're here. It was a fear that was so deep rooted and so deep down that I didn't even acknowledge because I didn't know it existed. And what I started to kind of trip over was that, you know, the energy of like we create our reality, like we consciously create our reality. Again, it was something I knew, but it was as if they were showing it from a higher point of view. So I was having a deeper understanding of what consciousness was, how we recreate our own energies, what we are. And it started to like scare me in a way. Like it started to scare me, and nothing like that ever scared me. If anything, the physical world scared me more than the spirit world ever did. Like I always felt at home in the spirit world. I wasn't like frightened. Like I've never been frightened of it. And all of a sudden, like the reality of what life is was just something that I couldn't quite comprehend in my brain anymore, because I was seeing it from a deeper perspective. I thought I knew, I thought I understood, but now I'm being shown it from an even deeper perspective. And it's starting to trigger me and actually scaring me, because now I'm going into this trip where I'm thinking, what if all of this is nothing? Like I started to think like all of this is pointless. And I'm somebody that lives my life through my heart and my emotions, and I live my life through love, and I live to feel and I live to heal. Like that's just like me. I've always been that person. So now I'm seeing it, but I'm almost like looking at it like, wow, life is pointless. What's the point? Like what's the point? Like what's the point of life? Like why are we even here? Like if our energy is creating stuff, then what's the point? Like I don't get it. And I couldn't quite comprehend why human beings even decided to come to earth. Like it was almost as if like what I knew, I was being shown it from a deeper understanding, and I couldn't comprehend it yet. So it was shattering what I knew, and it was almost like scaring me in a way. And at this point was when I started to have the infamous like kind of like hot flashes. My whole body started to like heat up and feel really warm, and basically I was starting to feel this really strong surge at the bottom of my root chakra, which felt just almost like all of the energy in my body was at the base of my root. Like that's how it felt. And I was having like energy coming up like through my chakras, and I was feeling really warm, but there was this strong, it was just almost if like all this energy was at my root chakra, but it couldn't make its way up yet. It was like spirit had literally shown me like flushing out my root chakra. But as it was doing it, my root chakra was blocked, guys. Like I had a blocked root chakra at this point. Any fears, any worries, anything that scared me about life and all of that, like it started to come up. And spirit was like, you need to understand, because I remember spirit saying to me like, you need to understand life, like you need to understand the process of shadow like work. And I remember like thinking like, I've just done shadow work, like, and spirit were like, no, like there's so much still unpacked. Like you've never dealt with your negative emotions. Like you haven't tapped into your shadow side. And it's so hard for me to put in a word, guys, like what it was that was truly triggering me, because now I understand everything. So it's like, I don't understand why this was triggering me and sending me into such a trip and causing this breakdown of ego for me. But like I literally was like tripping out of what I was being shown of what life is energetically. And when I was being shown the shadow side and the shadow attributes, and I was being shown like things happening in life that aren't so love and light, like I couldn't comprehend it. Like it was almost like traumatizing me, as if it was my first time understanding that bad things happen in life, even though my childhood was really heavy. And spirit were like, you haven't processed your shadow self, you haven't processed your shadow emotions that are holding you back, you haven't processed that. And I said, like, I was really tripping then, and I was kept being told, like, in this kind of like trip, like in this kind of awakening, like, you are not separate, you are not separate. And I know what they mean by that now, which was meaning I'm not separate from the universe. What I mean, like, I never understood I was the key fully yet. Like, I didn't get it. I didn't care. I didn't quite get that I was the consciousness that was creating my reality. I didn't understand that. Like, there was so many things that, like, I just didn't understand, and it was like tripping me out. I hope this is making sense. It may not even make sense to you, but it was just it just was tripping me out. And all of a sudden I was just like, my whole life while seeing trauma, I chose love, I chose light, I chose to give and help and almost self-sacrifice myself. But what I never did was feel anger when people hurt me. I blamed myself. I never felt hurt. I never felt all of these emotions. I never allowed myself to address fears that I had about life, fears that I had about spirituality. I then started to like trip again, thinking, I'm making this all up. I'm not psychic at all. This is all in my head. This earth's a dark place, and I'm just wearing rose-tinted glasses, opening my heart like this because people just decide to hurt me. And all of a sudden, every like fear, trauma, hurt that I had in my body started to rise, like literally rise, coming from this energy, my root chakra. It all started to rise, and it was traumatic. Like, I felt disconnected. I almost felt like I was living in a simulation, and that I was separate to the universe, if that makes sense. Like, I felt hollow. I felt like it was as if this whole thing just kind of collapsed. My whole brain, it was like an ego death. It collapsed, and I couldn't quite understand what was going on. And I felt like my gifts weren't real. I was telling myself that I'd made it all up. And I was telling myself that spirit wasn't real. And all of a sudden, I couldn't feel spirit around me. Like, I couldn't feel my connection to source. And I'm a heart person. Like, I'm a heart chakra person. And I work through my heart. And I feel my way through life. And I've always been so connected to, you know, Mother Gaia and the earth and everything, and I didn't feel it anymore. I felt no connection in my body. I felt hollow, and the only thing that I could feel was fear and numbness. Like, I literally was just in this abyss, like, of nothingness. I couldn't feel my light, and I felt so low and just dark, and I just, all of these feelings of like, what's the point? Like, there is no point in life. Like, and I just felt like there was no light in the world. Like, it literally crashed and burned, and I just felt like there was no light in the world at all. And I kept asking my spirit guides, like, what's going on? Because it literally felt like disassociation to my body, and it felt like numb. I've always had love to tap into, and I didn't have it anymore, it felt, at that point. And I was just like, oh my god, like, I'm so, like, I felt like everything had been shut off. And it was like my worst fear that I never knew that I had. I didn't feel connected to the universe. I didn't feel like I was a part of people around me. I didn't even care to heal people around me. And I just thought, oh my god, I think I've like given so much of myself that there's nothing left. Like, that's what I started to think. And I pulled my tarot cards, and I tried connecting with my higher self. And even though I couldn't really connect, my higher self still kind of came through, but wouldn't really say anything. And I shuffled my tarot cards, and I was crying on my floor, and I said, please help me, what's going on? Like, please help me. And my higher self came over me, and the sun card, I think it was the sun card flopped out, and my higher self said, all is well. And I literally like was screaming, like crying, like, no, it's not. Like, I can't feel anything. Like, it's not well. Like, I'm not okay. I don't know what's going on. Like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, help me, please. And all of a sudden, I just like felt this calm come over me. Like, it was almost like my human self was one thing and my higher self was the other thing. And I think this happened because I really just started to think like, there's no point in me being here. Like, my light felt turned off and it was like, I just need to leave, even if there's nothing beyond this. And I just, you know, because I started to question everything, like the spirit world, everything at this point, and I'd never in my life done that. I always felt connected from young, and I'm for the first time questioning everything because I can't feel it anymore. And I think that was like intervention of my higher self, because it almost felt like my mind and my ego was one thing, my higher self was another thing. And I started to be able to tap into my higher self in the sense of like, I know something's happening here mentally, I know something is happening here spiritually, but as far as my higher self, she's good. Like, I know I'm okay. I had this knowing, like, higher self wise, like, something's cooking, something's going on, but my whole physical human self was dying, completely dying, and I didn't want to accept that, which is the ego death. But like I said, I've been through an ego death, I've been through a dark night of the soul. This was the heaviest and like most profound one I've ever been through, like the heaviest one. And so I kind of was made aware that it was an ego death then. Like, I kind of intuitively knew, higher self wise, this is an ego death that you were going through, because everything that you once knew is now falling apart. And I asked my higher self what to do, and my higher self came through and said, you need to surrender and you need to allow everything to fall apart. You are no longer who you were. And you know, I've been set up for that. As you can see, like, my story time, like, the universe was setting me up for this, because it was clearing out everything physically, so that now we were going to be doing the clearing out, you know, inwardly. And I kind of realized, like, oh yeah, there's been all these shifts and stuff like that, but I didn't quite know how to surrender at the time. And spirit said, you just need to allow yourself to just, like, you know, the energetic sense of you, or everything that you knew, you need to put it on the floor, allow it to fall away, because you are, you know, ascending and you're moving through this. And I said, what's up next? Like, you know, once I do that, will I feel okay? And spirit said, you know, like, you will feel okay. My higher self was like, you will feel okay, but you are going to unpack more fears and hurt and pains that you have never processed before. And I took one look at that and I said, no. I said, no, I'm not. Like, I can't. Like, I don't want, because I never allowed myself to feel hurt, anger. I never allowed myself to feel a victim. I never allowed myself to feel any of these things, and I wasn't ready to do it. So what I did was I turned around and I tried running back to this old life that I just completely moved past. And I was looking for things of my old life to distract me. And one of the things that I did was I actually reached out to, remember the person that I said was the love interest in the January time that still decided to, like, play games and stuff? I decided that I was going to run back to this particular person, and that was going to distract me. And I remembered the choice that I had to make to ascend and move forward, or be with that person and put up with it. And I was like, I am not ready to do any of that, so I don't know how long this is gonna last, but I'm gonna run back to this person and I'm just going to put up with it, because you know what I mean, like, that's what I did. I'm not gonna sit here and say, yeah, I didn't. I ran back. And this person was very happy to go around the merry-go-round with me again, very happy to do that. But I was no longer the same person that I was before. And while this person, you know, was very much acting for me at that time as something to focus on, to hold me back into that old version of my life, one, it wasn't emotionally fulfilling. I still felt dim-lighted, like, I still didn't feel like I could feel my light. And on top of that, this person was disrespecting me and still taking me for granted and still playing their games. And this new version of me that I couldn't help but be now, because the old version of me was crumbling, I had to let go of this person. So can you imagine, I'm falling off this cliff and the murky waters are below me, and I'm like, I don't want to go in that murky water, so I'm clinging on to anything that I can. But clinging on to it, it's only hurting me more and disrespecting me more. And of course, at one point that branch breaks and I end up falling back into that murky waters that I was trying to avoid, because this person was disrespecting me and I wouldn't allow them to, and the universe made sure that this person would really, you know, disrespect me to show me that this person was not somebody that I wanted in my life and that I deserved better. And that's exactly what happened. And the minute, it was literally like a day after I cut this person off again, this only lasted like a 2-week period, guys. After this person left, I kind of like fell back into these like murky waters, and I was just kind of like accepting of the fact that this was what I had to kind of like, if I wanted to feel my heart again, and I wanted to feel any sense of normal, and I wanted to feel you know, like my light again, and I wanted to feel any sort of happy again, I had to surrender, because nothing from my old path was going to make me happy. And this was a process that I had to work through, and it was going to happen regardless anyway, but I just had to surrender, because this kind of psych battle of like my human psyche and my higher self, this battle was still going on, and I was basically aware that I needed to stop fighting and allow this version of me to finally fall away. So I allowed everything to kind of like fall away, and I fell into what I call the void stage, where you no longer feel petrified, you no longer have these fears, you no longer are resisting what you're being shown. You are in a state of acceptance about it. However, everything that you once knew and everything that you once were is now basically dying, and you are grieving this old version of you, but at the same time, there's like you may feel disconnected to spirit in that time, and you don't feel connected to any interests that you once had. You kind of feel very depressed, and you just don't really know who you are anymore. And that was basically what happened. And you can see, like, at the start of my videos on YouTube, I wore like a lot of makeup, and then I went through a long period where I really just didn't wear makeup. I'd stick foundation on and a bit of lipstick, and that was it. Like, I didn't care what I looked like. I really couldn't have given less of a F. Like, I didn't care. And I've always been somebody like that loved like luxurious things, and I loved making things look pretty and making things look beautiful. Like, that's how I've always identified with things. Like, I did beauty therapy for 3 years. I love perfumes and makeup and home interior. I love designing and things like that. And all of a sudden, I didn't even really feel connected to any of that. I didn't feel connected to my creativity, and I was just getting rid of all my makeup because it didn't have a connection to me anymore. Lost connection to it. My perfumes, I didn't connect to them anymore. Like, why am I going to put perfumes on my body? Like, I almost was just like, this doesn't mean anything to me. I gave my perfumes to my sister. It was Christmas for my sister. It was like, here's clothes, here's makeup, here's my perfumes. I want nothing. But yeah, like, nothing. I felt connected to nothing. I wasn't listening to music. I didn't want to hear noise in my brain. I didn't, you know, when I was meditating, I didn't want to hear anything. I wanted simplicity. And to be honest with you, everything crumbled to the point that I was no longer like a human being in a way. Like, I literally, my ego had completely dissolved at this point, and I was just kind of existing as a soul in a body. I had no arguments to have with people because I had no real opinion of anything. I didn't care. I just wanted to be. I wanted to exist, and that was it. And I still was going back and forth through like not feeling a connection to anything and feeling a connection to anything, and that was something that I was still kind of like battling back and forth. And I remember like going for a walk with my sister right before I went like I completely surrendered and, you know, went through that ego death. Like, I was still kind of like battling. This is something I forgot to mention, but I went for a walk with my friend and my sister, and like I said, I was always connected to Mother Gaia, so when I'd go for walks, I would ground my feet in the ground, and I felt so connected to the trees. And I would ground my feet in the ocean, and I would feel so connected to the ocean, and I would just feel the healing properties, and I felt at one with it. And I would always like look at flowers, and I always like how leaves, they have what looks like veins in them, and it's similar to human veins, and I would see myself in the leaves. And I remember just like going for a walk thinking this is the best way to reconnect, because I'm so disconnected, and like I'm not connected to the universe. It feels, I felt left behind. No, it wasn't real. And as I went on that walk, like, I just felt like I was in a simulation. I didn't feel like anything had meaning. I was looking at the trees, and I no longer saw like the beauty in them, and it was just petrifying me. Like, there's no meaning to anything. Like, there really isn't, like, I'm so disconnected. And I remember taking my shoes and socks off and trying to like stand in the water and feel that healing energy, and it was just plain water. Like, I felt nothing at all. I felt like I wasn't in my body. I felt like I was in assimilation. Like, I felt so, like, it felt one-dimensional. It felt like nothing was real. That's how I felt. It felt like nothing was real. And moving forward again, because I had to go back to tell you that story, because that whole period, when I think about it, upsets me, because it's not something I ever want to feel again. And I know how I felt. I just wish I could go back and give myself a hug. But anyway, I allowed myself to surrender. Like I said, I was getting rid of everything that didn't serve me, and nothing at this point like meant anything to me. I didn't care what I looked like. I just was existing as a soul. And I just lived like that for maybe a month, maybe. Like, I just completely would, like, I'd wake up in the morning, I wouldn't work out or anything. I didn't feel the need. I didn't want to do anything like humanly things that you do or have an attachment to in the physical world. Like, I didn't want to do them. I woke up, I would have like something to eat, and I would sit on my sofa in my room, and it would just be complete silence, and I would listen to the birds chirping outside, and I like to listen to them. It would somewhat like give me sparks of life again, like, oh, the birds, like it would give me like a relief in a way. Like, I was starting to slowly, after that surrender, like find little parts of like connectedness in a way, because I would listen to the birds, and that would be very soothing and healing for me. And I was just in this void state of nothingness, like nothing, you know, really means anything. And I decided then, like, my room, I had like my beauty station with my my dressing table and all my makeup and my perfume, and I just didn't want to look at it. It didn't mean anything to me, so I got rid of it all, and I redid my room. I had like kind of like a New York grey charcoaly like New York wallpaper on my wall. I wanted like the grey kind of like glamorous thing, and because I always loved Marilyn Monroe, so I wanted like glam and like New York and like Hollywood and stuff like that. I had like Marilyn Monroe things, and I literally was ripping my wallpaper off. I didn't want it anymore, and I decided that my whole room needed to completely change because it wasn't reflecting what I wanted anymore. But at the same time, I didn't know what I wanted because I didn't feel connected to anything. So I painted my walls like pure white, and I remember like in this stage, I remember coming up to my room and everything had gone, and like even my altar where I would sit and meditate, because the walls were wet, I had to take my tapestry off, and everything that was me, like everything that was me, wasn't there anymore. Like, it was just this bare white room, and I remember like collapsing to my knees, and I was just grieving myself in a way. Like, I was grieving that old version of me, which was needed, and I just felt empty, and my whole room was empty. Like, my sofa in the middle of my room had all my stuff on it that I was keeping, which was literally nothing, and nothing else was in my room, but it was just pure white. And I just sat there like in this void. And the reason I call it the void stage, you guys who watch my channel, you know I talk about Doctor Who a lot. I love Doctor Who so much. And there was an episode at the end of season 2 where there was the normal world and a parallel world. And in between the normal world and a parallel world, there was like a white wall, and to get there you had to go through the void, and the void was the white wall. And that's when I had the realization, because I was sitting with my back against the wall that you see now. It was just a pure white wall. I was sitting there, and I remember thinking that it looked like Doctor Who, the normal world, and then the parallel world, and then the void stage. And I was like thinking about it, and Spirit was showing me that scene from Doctor Who. And then I just had this kind of like epiphany, like, I'm no longer who I was, and I'm grieving who I was. I'm now in a void stage, and I'm going to be on the timeline then where I'm a new version of myself, that's a more healthier version of myself, kind of like the parallel world type thing. So it was like, oh wow, like I set out to switch timelines, and maybe, you know, that kind of gave me comfort in a way. Like, I was starting to kind of like find myself through spirituality again, if that makes sense. Like, be like, oh my god, this is making sense. And I was starting to make sense. Things were starting to make sense a little bit more. Like, this is what I'm going through. I'm going through the void stage. Like, this is it. This is what I'm going through. Okay. So I allowed myself to just be at that point, and I surrendered. And when I asked spirit what was up next, they said, okay, next you're going to be doing heavy shadow work, kind of like what you did in the summer, but it's going to be heavier, and you are about to purge and release a lot. And I was at that point, I wanted to really bad, because I wanted to feel again, because I couldn't feel much. My heart wasn't feeling expanded like it normally would. My heart didn't feel connected like it normally would, and I was like almost ready for it. Like I was like, yeah, count me in, like let's roll up the sleeves, let's go for it, because I would rather purge pain out than feel nothing, because at least that way I know that I am me, you know what I mean? Like I'm a person, I feel my way through life. Like I'm clairsentient, it's one of my strongest abilities. Like I just wanted to feel again. So I started with the shadow work, and I was like, spirit, where do I begin? And spirit were like, it'll come up when it needs to, allow it. And I was just like, okay, I will. Like, okay. So what started to happen was these surges of energy at the bottom of my root chakra started to get stronger and stronger. It literally felt like somebody, like an energy was pulling on my root chakra in a way. Like I could really feel it. And like, bear in mind, my root chakra was blocked up to this point. Like I'd had a root chakra my whole life and hadn't realized it. I just thought it was a bit imbalanced, and then it was hard for me to ground. Like no, it was never supposed to be that way. It was a blocked root chakra. And I started, like, I remember like doing the dishes when I first like realized what was going on, because I was like doing the dishes and this surge of energy was in my root chakra. And have you seen mermaids swim? They do this. My whole body was moving like this, like uncontrollably, because I felt this energy in my root chakra. Like I could feel it there, and I was just like, oh my god. And I was starting to like do these poses with my back. I'm not going to do them for you, I think it might be a bit, you know, it might look a bit wrong, but I was doing these poses with my back and like stretching in a way that my root chakra felt comfortable, and that my root chakra felt that this energy felt like it could move, because I can't even explain it. My whole body would just go into this root chakra position, and I call it the root chakra position whenever I want to connect to my root chakra now, because I would just bend my back and be in this weird position. I don't know whether it's a yoga pose, I'm not quite sure, because I've never been too well into yoga too much, but like I was doing this position and I would stay in that place for ages, and it almost felt like downloads would come through when I would do it. And that kept happening, and it would happen at night a lot. Like I was going to bed and I would just feel this root chakra thing, to the point that I would just be moving in my bed like this, like a worm. Like I was just literally moving all the time, because there was such energy there. And then that's when I started to unpack a lot of my trauma and a lot of my shadow work. And I'm not going to go into all of it, but basically all of my childhood trauma was starting to come up. I was having really vivid dreams that were revealing things to me that I had never really realized before. And there was a lot of truths that I was kind of being made aware of that I kind of like avoided. And there was, you know, I was like physically abused as a child, and I was emotionally I'd had like an abusive relationship, and I'd always kind of been mentally abused through childhood as well. And I never looked at myself as a victim. I never allowed myself to feel what I guess a victim would feel. I never looked at it that way. And now I had to really understand like a lot, and I had to kind of do this really heavy like work on my inner child and teach my inner child that, you know, I kind of had a bit of like Stockholm syndrome towards, you know, certain people in my family, because I just wanted to fix them. I didn't understand that I was a victim, and I had to kind of understand that, and I had to kind of tap into my inner child and tap into her and teach her and tell her like, we should never have gone through this, like this isn't right. Like, and I had to really feel that victim mentality that I'd never allowed myself to feel, and I had to feel hurt that I never allowed myself to feel. And I had to accept that, like, you know, I had two parents that were supposed to protect me and love me and give me, you know, this childhood. And yeah, okay, spiritually I chose to go through this, but at the same time, as a human being, I didn't deserve it. I didn't deserve to not feel love, and I didn't deserve to be hurt and you know, abused or anything like that. Like, I didn't deserve that, and I had to process that and accept it, because to feel it, I had to accept that it had happened to me. And it was just really hard for me to accept. Like, I had to really feel that. And after I felt all of it and I was purging, then I was starting to feel, you know, protective over myself and protective over my inner child and wary of other people because of that. And because I was feeling protected and I was understanding now that I was hurt, and how because of the way I was people pleasing and stuff, because of what had happened to me, that other people took advantage. And one thing I never dealt with was anger. One thing I never did was be angry at people that used me or hurt me or gaslighted me or anything like that. And all of a sudden I'm processing these emotions, and they were emotions that were foreign because I never allowed myself to feel them. So I'm feeling anger, I'm feeling what felt like hatred. There were times where I couldn't look at my own mother, like I couldn't look at her, I didn't want anything to do with her. There was so much anger towards everybody, and it was a foreign feeling that I never felt, and I'm swimming in it. Like literally it felt like I was drowning in it. I'm feeling all of this pain from my childhood. And this, I'm gonna get into something else, but just know this was like September 2020 of last year to December. Those 4-month periods was just, I could feel the connection again, but the only connection I had was hurt and pain, because it was all I was processing at the time. I was severely depressed and just processing the heaviest emotions, and it was all at once. It wasn't like here's a little bit, here's a little bit. Like it was the deepest, darkest demons and hurts and pains all at once, like over and over and over again. It didn't stop for about 4 months, the childhood stuff and those pains. But that was happening from September to December, and this was all going on simultaneously around the time that I was starting to unpack my root chakra. So I'm feeling these pains in my root chakra. This is like early September, late September, like early October, that my root chakra started to be unpacked. And like I said, I had a blocked root chakra, and I was somebody that was always fearful of the physical world in a way. My mother, I'm gonna say trigger warning if you want to skip maybe 20 seconds, my mother was abused in her youth. Didn't want that happening to me, so she made me fearful of other people, and so many traumatic things that went on in my childhood that like I lived for fear. Like I would be in bed and I'd hear a knock, and automatically it was like someone's gonna break in, and I would think of the ultimate worst thing you could think happening, because my brain was like that way because of childhood, and I was constantly in that state of fear in regards to other people, which I guess was why I like to be on my own a lot. And you can't go on living that way, do you know what I mean? Like that was a fear that I had, that I guess thought was just a normal thing. I thought everybody had it. And I went for a walk with my friend Sam. This was like the end of September, and we always go hiking, going on these like long walks and stuff like that. And basically there was a pathway in the middle of nowhere. We were out of our comfort zone, somewhere we'd never been before, and there was 2 pathways. There was one pathway that way, one pathway that way, and on the pathway that way there was a guy, and he was sitting on the middle of the floor. Bit weird because we were in our second lockdown of the year, and he was just like sitting on the floor blocking the path. It was a little bit odd, but most people would be like, okay, that's odd, and move on. Whereas me, naturally, this would always happen to me. Even when I was walking home, I started to feel fear. But I wasn't just feeling fear. Like for the first time in my life, I got so frightened of this person on this path that I started to, for the first time, disassociate from my body. I felt disconnected from my body, and I started having all of these thoughts in my brain like, this is gonna happen, this is gonna happen. Like the worst thing you could think of would ever happen, because this guy is with us in the middle of nowhere, was in my brain, and I was disassociating, and my mind was going, and I couldn't control it, and I was like literally going insane in my brain, and I felt like I couldn't tell my friend because I didn't want to worry him. So all of this is going on, and we're like still on this hike, and I keep thinking this person's behind us, this person's behind us. I don't feel connected to my body. I'm literally having a breakdown in my brain, but not literally telling anyone. And I got home and I literally was like crying my eyes out because I was so disconnected to my physical body at that point. Like I was so traumatized. It was almost as if like my soul was in my body, saw something that frightened it and ran away, and I just felt like I wasn't in my body. I felt really scared and I was disassociating. So I tried doing one of my root chakra baths, and it felt like I couldn't get back in my body. Like that's literally how it felt. it was kind of like soul retrieval in a way. Like it was just a bit like I detached from my physical body because I was so scared. Because I'm scared to live. I'm scared to travel somewhere on my own because I am scared. I am scared of people. Like, you're frightened of life and you can't live that way because we're here for a reason. The trauma in my childhood, and I've not been comfortable in my physical body, so I was like, oh wow, like this is probably why I'm having such an energy in my root chakra, and this is what needs to be cleared out. So all the while, like I can still feel this strong surge at the bottom of my root chakra. I just don't feel connected to my body. It was the most bizarre feeling. I hope it's all making sense. So I sat down in my bed and Spirit were like, you need to meditate, you need to meditate, you need to work through this, your root chakra's blocked, your root chakra's blocked. And I was like, oh, okay. So I laid in my bed, it was actually the next morning, it was the next day. I laid in my bed and I was like, I'm gonna settle this. You know, why is this happening? I don't want to be disassociating every time I see a big pigeon, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be doing that. Like, I've never done it to this point before. Like, this is a problem. So I said I go into this deep meditation on my root chakra, and basically it was soul retrieval that I was doing, and I didn't even realize it was soul retrieval I was doing. I asked my spirit guides to guide me, and they basically were like, I didn't go anywhere to my past. It was almost like everything was like dark, and it felt like I was retrieving a part of myself that was like hiding. If you guys don't know what soul retrieval is and soul loss, it's when you go through trauma and a part of your soul, a fragment of your soul, can sometimes become separate from the body, and that can basically happen. And soul retrieval is when you bring that part of you back. And my whole life I was scared, you know what I mean, to live in the physical, and I could see that there was a part of me that was like refusing to be in my physical body. And basically when you go to shamans and you go to people that help you with soul retrieval, they will kind of go to that part of you and kind of convince that part of you to come back to the physical body. That's basically what happens. And I basically was doing that energetically. Like, I was embodying this part of me that was scared, you know what I mean? It wasn't in my physical body, I was embodying it. And all of a sudden this fear just came through my body and pain came through my body. I was crying my eyes out, and I was like laying in my bed and I was like shouting out like stuff that I'd never shouted out before, that I'd never admitted to myself. I was shouting it out in complete pain. Like, I don't want to be here. This place is a mess. Like, people are mean, people are nasty, like people are aggressive. Like, this is a scary place. I don't want to be here. Like, this is a scary place. Like, I don't want to live in the physical. I don't want to be here. Like, this is scary for me. Like, people are mean, people are like, you know, I saw a lot of darkness, and I think that's what that part of me that saw that had run away. And it was like that part of me was just saying like people are evil, you know, like people are not nice, and I don't want to be here. And it was just a horrible feeling coming up through my root chakra. Like, it was just pain. And then all of a sudden, like, it was like that energy kind of transmuted and morphed, and then I started to kind of see from a higher perspective, from a point that I'd never looked at it before. And I started to feel safe and cocooned in my physical body. I started to feel like nothing can happen to me, like nothing can happen to me because I'm safe. Like, I'm safe in my physical body because I say I'm safe. And you know what I mean, like I trust myself. And like there was just all of these like things coming through, like full circle moments coming through, in which I felt that part of me that was so frightened like dissolving. And all of a sudden, like these shooting pains were like, not shooting pains, like warm pains, like warm like heat flashes going up my root chakra, like that first time I did the meditation. And all of a sudden it was just almost like this overwhelming peace came over me, and I kind of understood from a higher perspective, like, because I never purged those feelings or tapped into them before. I started to feel safe in my physical body, and all of a sudden, like, this feeling I had in my root chakra that was causing me to like move my body, and it was there this whole time, it started to dissolve, and it almost dissolved into some sort of like cup, like a lotus flower. And all of a sudden I just remember seeing red everywhere, like energetically, like red. And for the first time in my life, like I wish I could make you feel how I felt. Like, I felt so safe. Like, I felt safe. I felt like it was like a lotus flower that I was cupped in, and my root chakra was connected to that, like a stem. And I felt for the first time, like in my physical body, I felt safe. Like I felt myself, like I just felt grounded. My whole life I hadn't felt it, and I felt it. Like I felt so grounded and connected. Like the overwhelming like triumph that I felt, like I'd felt so disconnected for so long, and I felt connected in my root chakra and connected to the earth again and connected to the animals again, and it was blissful. Like I didn't even speak to anyone else for the rest of the day because I just felt in the moment and happy and safe, you know, like safe. And I went for a walk the next day, and I can't even explain, like I appreciated Mother Gaia and the earth and the animals like so much more than I ever had. Like I felt so much more connected to them. Like I felt so at one with them, and that they were me and I was them, and it was so beautiful. Like I'd felt that, because energetically I'd felt it, but never like part of it, like my physical body, like I'm a part of you. I never felt that. I never felt a connection to Gaia that strong, if at all, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden I did, and I you know, I would just like, for a while, like I remember I would just sit and watch birds, because like I said, I have a skyline. I would watch the birds, and I would have like downloads about birds, about how they like energetically energy that we purge out, they energetically cleanse it for us. That's why they fly over us. And I was having all of these beautiful things, and I was just so grateful. And like, again, trees, like I was just seeing them as part of me. Like, you breathe out oxygen, and you breathe out oxygen, and I breathe in oxygen, and then I breathe out carbon dioxide, and you breathe it in. Like, when life forces to each other, like wow, like I just felt so connected. It was so blissful and beautiful. Like it was beautiful. I'm not gonna keep going over and over, but it was beautiful. This video is probably gonna last about 2 hours, I think. But yeah, no, it felt beautiful. It was just the most beautiful feeling. And then everything was normal for a couple of days. I was still purging like old wounds and things like that, like childhood wounds. They were still coming up. I was still dealing with them. And then give it a couple of days, and then all of a sudden I started to feel that feeling again. But it was no longer in my root chakra anymore. I felt grounded in my root chakra. I felt like cupped, like I was a flower sitting on a stem. I felt very rooted. Now it was happening in my sacral chakra. And I'm not going to get into much about the sacral chakra, but a lot of you guys probably know, like the sacral chakra, it does control like our emotions and stuff like that. And I was going through like a little bit of a depression at the time, while I was purging all of these bad, you know, dark wounds and all of that, and they were all coming up to the surface, and I was feeling all of these shadow things. I was feeling very depressed, and that's when I was having an expansion in my sacral chakra, and that was around the Christmas time of 2020. I was going through that kind of like cleanse, and wounds were coming up in regards to my sacral chakra, very much like my root, and I was just basically working through them and having an expansion then in my sacral chakra, where I basically had like a lot of epiphanies about like what like sacred sexuality is, and how sex is, you know, I'm not gonna get into it, but I was just seeing how sex is like a union of two souls, and it's a creator of life, and it shouldn't be frowned upon. And I was just having all of those like epiphanies and stuff like that, and tapping into my divine feminine and tapping into my sensuality and stuff like that. And that was like a really, you know, nice thing to be going through. But at the same time, like I was still purging and releasing and stuff like that. That was around the time I stopped doing personal readings. And going into January 2021, I thought I'll start doing personal readings again, because by that point we'll be over all of this, and I'll feel better, and I'll feel energetically better to commence with all, you know, personal readings again. I'll feel better. I wanted to believe that going into 2021 I was gonna have this like surge of energy, and I would be back to normal, which wasn't the case, which is why the personal readings never really came back, because it was a continuous thing of like inner transformation that I was doing, and I had to prioritize it. But going into the new year, which was you know, like January, February, March 2021, there was a little bit of a period where I started to feel a lot lighter, because imagine like never being connected to your root chakra fully, or like, you know, you've just been through all of this, like these dark emotions and stuff like that. You're purging them out, and these are emotions that have been weighing you down your whole life, and then all of a sudden they're like not there anymore. Like you're feeling lighter. So I was feeling lighter, I was feeling better, and I was starting to think, okay, maybe that's the end of it. I hadn't quite understood that this was happening to all of my chakras, and I didn't even quite understand that it was a Kundalini awakening at the time. And it was around this period when my solar plexus, that energy that I was feeling in my root and my sacral, now that I'd kind of like cleansed those two chakras and I'd had an enlightening period for both of those chakras, this was now happening in my solar plexus. So as it started to happen in my solar plexus, I basically started to feel again all these negative emotions that I had tied to my solar plexus. So I started to feel extremely insecure, especially in regards to my weight, basically because when I was like doing all of this inner work, I was emotionally eating and I wasn't eating healthy. So what was happening was I was putting on weight quite quickly, quite rapidly, insecure about my weight. And I was thinking about it not so much about like, hang on a minute, like, it's, you know, your health is not the best right now, and you know, are putting really bad foods in your body and you are rapidly putting on weight. Like, okay, maybe we should address this. I wasn't looking at it in that way. I was looking at it from the insecurity side of the solar plexus, which was, oh my god, like, I don't look presentable, I don't look nice. Like, I was starting to have all of these insecurities that I had about my physical body anyway. They were all starting to come up, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna like push to like go into my workout that I was doing before, where I was like waking up at 4:30 and working out. And my spirit guides were very strongly like, don't do that, like, it's not right for you right now, like, this is too heavy for you, you don't need to be doing a grueling thing like that, like, don't, no. And I was like, yes, I'm gonna do it because I need to lose weight and I don't like the way I look, and I'm gonna do it. So I basically this one morning woke up at 4:30, and I, with all of my might, did not want to be working out. I was physically drained. Like, imagine doing all of that shadow work. Like, no, that was where my energy was going, and I was just completely drained, because if I wasn't channeling for other people, I was doing my own shadow work. I was drained, and my body was like, no, like, we can't do this, we can't like be working out like that. But I was like forcing myself, like literally forcing myself, and I intuitively was getting nudges, no, and I didn't listen. And I was working out. I'd done about 30 minutes on the treadmill, and because I was so in my mind like having these intuitive messages like, don't do it, and I was like batting it away, like, no, like, I have to. Basically what was happening was I wasn't really aware of my surroundings, and I basically decided to do this really intense workout on the mat, on the floor. It was like a slippery mat, and underneath it was tile. And the first workout was to jump from one end of the mat to the other. I jumped from one end of the mat to the other, the mat slipped, I fell on my back, and I jarred my back, and I couldn't stand up straight for 3 weeks. So what I had to do then was I had to lay in bed for at least a week and not like literally work or anything like that. Like, I literally had to just lay back and not do anything, like, because spirit was like, you know, I wasn't listening to spirit. And then that's basically what happened intuitively. The universe was like, not yet, like, you're not ready, like, not yet. So while I was sitting back, I was just like, I'm so annoyed, like, surely I should be eating healthy, and surely I should be getting my body right. Like, why is this happening? Because my body needs to, like, you know, like, be healthy and stuff like that. And I'd gone downstairs. It was like a week later, and I was very irritated with my spirit guides, very irritated with the universe, because I was like, I'm just going to put on weight now because I'm not moving at all now. I'm just laying in bed. And I'd gone downstairs and I'd only just eaten, right? I'd only just eaten like an hour or two before. And I'd gone downstairs and I was crying about how insecure I was about my body and my face and everything. And while I was crying and feeling emotional, I was like, I need to eat. I need to eat. And for the first time, I was like, I'm not hungry though. Like, I'm not hungry. Like, there's no need to eat because I'm not hungry. But then the more I was crying about my weight, I was like, but I need to eat. Like, there was this thing in me, like, I had to eat. And then I just had this like really big epiphany, like, oh girl, like, you're addicted to food. Like, and this is why it was traumatic for me. Like, everyone in my family that I've known has had an addiction, whether it was alcohol, drugs, gambling. And I was always like, oh, thank God I've never had an addiction. Like, that's one ancestral curse I don't think I'd be able to break. Like, thank God I've never had an addiction. And now I'm having to really admit that I have an addiction to food. And I later on realised, like, I had to take like a test and stuff like that, but I was kind of like diagnosed with like binge eating disorder. And I was like realizing like, oh my god, this is an addiction, this is an addiction. And it was like horrible for me to admit to myself, because looking back it was always there, but this is like the strongest it had been and the most weight I'd put on, because this is the longest I'd been in a period of emotionally eating and stuff like that, and I really would binge. Like, I realized it, like I was so upset that I realized that I had this addiction, that I wanted to eat, and I was like forcing myself, like trying so hard, like trying to take my mind off food, like don't eat, don't eat, don't eat, like you don't need to eat. And in the end I just like broke, and I just remember like eating loads of food and I was like crying while eating it, like oh my god, like I'm telling myself and everyone like I'm on this self-love journey and I'm abusing my physical body, like and it was just like this hard like thing, like I couldn't get my head around it, and it was like a self-hatred then, like oh my god, I can't believe I'm doing this to myself. And then that was something that I had to acknowledge and something that I had to like work through, because looking back, that's what I would do. I would work out, be extreme, healthy eating, and then I would stop, and then I would binge, put the weight back on, and I would go back and forth, and that was ruining my physical body. Like that was just not right at all. And that was something that needed to be implemented, because so now I'm unpacking everything to do with like my insecurities and everything to do with like my solar plexus. Anyone knows like when you have like a weak solar plexus or anything like that, that's when you tend to put on weight. And it was like emotional weight, you know what I mean? It was weight that like was coming more so from insecurities. Every time I felt insecure about my weight was when I would do it. Like it was one of those things, it was kind of like a paradox that I had to kind of like break and work through and understand why I was doing that and work through. So that was something that I then started to work through and heal through and work through. And then other things in regards to my solar plexus were coming up for me to work through, in regards to me not feeling like me giving my power away in a way, or me feeling like I always had to explain myself to people, or me feeling like I had to when I was putting in boundaries, I was explaining why I was putting in the boundaries and hoping the other person wouldn't get mad. Like that was still like a thing that I had. And I went through a phase where people were just either being really mean to me or just like trying to really press my boundaries and push my boundaries. But it was happening for me to really assert them and realize I had a trigger in regards to a certain boundaries. I don't know if you guys remember back in like May, I'd made like a post because people were being mean to me in my emails, and like it was more than one person. It happened like a couple of times where people, like I wasn't replying within like 12 hours to somebody's email, and they were calling me like awful names and stuff like that. And then when I was asserting my boundaries or posting online, I was like having to like I was explaining myself because I didn't feel worthy of putting like those boundaries in, because I was taught that who the hell was I to put boundaries in as a child. So all that was coming up, and I'm unpacking all of that in regards to my solar plexus. And then like clockwork, I had a surge, the solar plexus opened, I started feeling very confident in regards to myself, and all of a sudden I started feeling that energy in my heart chakra. And I didn't really have to do much purging, because to be honest with you, all of the purging in regards to like inner child work and stuff like that, that had already been done and was being released. But you know, I was saying like when I first went through the Kundalini Awakening, like me feeling separate to the earth, I already kind of like resolved that through the root chakra. But me feeling separate to like other people, and me kind of feeling like unloved, and that there was no point in life, and not feeling that there was ever any love like out there, and that there was just no point, that was still something that I was like being brought up for me to work through. And then a lot of like hurt and pains in regards to like abandonment in regards to my father and stuff was coming up in regards to my heart chakra. A lot of stuff in regards to old connections and relationship was coming up in regards to my heart chakra, and I was working through, I was purging through. I won't get into it because this is going to be a really long video, but I was just purging through it and working through it and releasing it. And then I had that expansion in my heart chakra when I realized that I just had this love and forgiveness for everybody in my life, like even the people that hurt me. Like now that I'd purged these feelings, I could finally fully forgive. It wasn't like me subsidizing it and just looking at the spiritual side of it. Like I was dealing with the human side of it. I dealt with anger, I dealt with hate, I dealt with hurt, I dealt with pain, and now I can forgive you. And there was like a lot of forgiveness that was just happening within me. I wasn't going out and saying I forgave people, because there was people I naturally felt like I'd moved past, but I truly just felt forgiveness for a lot of people. And this, I started to realize like people did love me, they just loved me from their own level of where they could love. And you know, my parents, like they, you know, even my dad that I hadn't spoken to in years, like I was so brokenhearted about that for so long, and I just realized like he did love me, but he only loved me as much as he loved himself, and he didn't love himself, and he did his best with the way that he could and the way he knew how, about how he grew up. And I was able to forgive, like really let go. I just had so much love. Like I got it, like I finally got it. I was never separate. No one ever hated me. I wasn't unloved. Like I just humanly accepted that I wasn't. When I was rejected by certain parents or hurt by certain parents, I rejected, like I felt rejected and I felt unloved, and that's where my unworthiness came from too. I felt unloved, I felt unworthy, and I finally understood, and I realized like that worthiness and that love, it's coming from me and nobody else. Like I'm creating this reality, and I'm the person that, you know, I'm the person who says I'm worthy, and I'm the, you know, I'm that. And taking that expectation off them, like you couldn't be what I needed you to be, but I can be that for myself now, and I forgive you, and I hope you heal, but I can't be the one to heal you, and I forgive you. And it was just this beautiful kind of resolute, it felt, in regards to my heart chakra. Really beautiful, resolute. And I then, after that, when it went up to my like root chakra, and I had that kind of like resolute in regards to my root chakra, and not root chakra, throat chakra, sorry. It went up to my throat chakra, and I had that resolute in my throat chakra, and me finally like realizing who I was and being in my self-worth and understanding that nothing I felt really could stop me. And I started having strong expansions in my throat chakra, and I was really just like talking my ish and not caring what other people thought, and just really finally embodying who I was and coming home to myself, it felt. And then it went up to my third eye and my crown chakra, and I started to have really strong expansions there, and I was having a lot of past life memories, and I was understanding my soul mission a lot more, tapping even like stronger, like accessing my Akashic records. And I finally, from a higher perspective, saw my purpose from a higher perspective, and finally kind of like, because I was this completely different person than when I set out, I had a new idea of where I wanted to go. It no longer was start YouTube, do personal readings, help people. It was more than that. I've just done soul retrieval by myself. I'm having past lives of myself, you know, where I was working with energies and helping people. That's literally why I'm here. And I was realizing like I'm literally here to help and teach people. Like it's not just a case of doing personal readings, which I am, you know, I will bring them back at one point, but it's more than that. Like I'm here to work with energy. I work with it, and I went through this experience, this transformation, to help people, like, you know, work through their inner child and their shadow selves. Like that's why I've gone through this, and I had this whole epiphany of what life was. And again, and I had this beautiful like full circle moment. Like I had new meaning. Like when, if you go back to when I went through that of feeling like there was no meaning, I had this beautiful, the reason I felt that way was because that meaning was dying, and I was having this new found meaning of life and why I was here and who I was, like no longer held by trauma or hurt or pleasing people and pain. It was love, and it was healing, and it was content. And I was like, it was just this full circle moment, like. And that's when I was able to finally see that timeline that I hadn't been able to see for like a year and a half. I could see where I was headed, and I was just like, oh wow, you know what I mean? And then spirit were like, okay, the hard part's over, rest. And if you guys have been watching my channel, like, you know, I was pumping out the content because I had the energy to and I felt called to. But that's why I've like only been posting like 2 videos a week, or I've been taking much more time out for myself over the period of like July, August, like that period. Because when spirit said rest, like my whole body like flumped. Like I literally was like, oh my god, like so tired, like not in a bad way, because I was feeling pretty content, but I was just so tired. Like I swear to god, through the months of like July, August, September, I slept so much. And like going through the Kundalini Awakening, all of that energy, like I had such insomnia, like I was just never sleeping. I remember posting something like, I don't know whether I'm awake from, I don't know whether I'm lucid dreaming or whether I'm just like completely like sleep deprived, because I just don't know what's going on at the moment. And I swear all the times I didn't sleep the year before, I was sleeping for in 2021, like the summer of 2021, like I slept and I just wanted my bed, like, and I'm not a nap person, I wanted my bed, I wanted to lay down, I wanted to sleep. All this energy is just coming out and I just wanted to lay down. Like it was just too much. Like I was just like, oh my god, I'm tired, like I'm so tired. So I was just in that process of basically purging, not in like a bad way or like negative. I wasn't even crying. It was just like, it was more energy wise, like I just couldn't sleep, I had no energy. It was like I think I was just like in the higher realms, like detoxing from all the things that just kind of like arised, because it was a process. Like we've just unpacked 2 hours worth of, it was a process, and I haven't even gone in depth into like the deepest darkest shadow work I was doing, but like I was doing a lot. I think this video can like say that. And when I started to get like a little bit of energy back again, I was still feeling like low emotionally, just because I just spent a year and a half in my shadow self. I just spent like a year and a half not really attached to my physical body, and I've just spent a year and a half not really feeling like a human being. Like I've been in the higher realms for like a year and a half, and I've got a lot of catching up to do. Like obviously because I was working through like the binge eating and stuff like that, I'd put on weight. And I was just like, okay, well this is something I'm going to need to work through, because I need to be physically healthy. This is now something that I've got to go through. But there was no insecurity attached to it. Like even now it's just like, it, like health wise, like we're working through it. Do you know what I mean? We're healing. We know what to do now. There's no rush. Like just allow it to like work itself out. And I started to like implement like working out again, which is what I've been doing the past couple of like, well, the past like month really, and finding foods that now work for me again and cleansing my body. That's what I've been doing the past month, so that I can get back to a healthy weight. Because and then I just had this like newfound love for life. Like I no longer, like my whole life I don't want to be here, I wanted to be somewhere else. I felt like an alien, and I just felt like in the September time, like I was coming out of this cocoon, and I just had love for life. And I like, when I tell you how light I feel, like, and I just feel really light. Like this is where I'm at right now. I've come out of the cave, and through the period of September, October, I just found myself again. Like my perfume obsession is back. Like I've started collecting perfumes again, and wanting to like make my Instagram feed look aesthetically pleasing, like I always love to do, because I love to do that. And finding the creativity in little things again, like buying new clothes because I care about fashion again. Like that version of me, like things that I guess had fallen away on the floor, I was now picking parts of it up again and being like, oh wow, like I can have that back now. Like I've gone through that death and I actually love that, and I'm finding like parts of myself that make me feel like me again. I'm able to honor my body and not push myself to work out, but just work out in a normal way. You know what I mean? Not be like hard on myself, and eating the right foods and not feeling like I have to binge, like it's not there anymore. And for the first time in my life, I feel light, I feel connected, I feel free, I feel love. There's so many like relationships with family members that I've been able to salvage and heal through forgiveness. And I finally see where I'm going. I feel like the Fool card in tarot. It's the only way I can describe it now that I'm coming out of this cocoon. About my Kundalini Awakening, and when I sat down to really talk about it, I knew that where it all started was the fall of 2019. And if we take ourselves back to the first thing that I said, which was the script, the first thing that I said was I wanted to be financially abundant. I'm now making more money than I've ever been. I said that I wanted to be the best version of myself mentally, spiritually, physically and emotionally. Mentally, spiritually and emotionally I am, and now I've completely cleared all of what was holding me back from being the best version of myself physically, and now I can work on being myself, the best version of myself physically. I'm now, you know, feeling abundant. I was scripting and asking to help guide people and show people their inner light all over the world, and I'm doing it for a job. everything that I scripted and asked for, I'm living it right now. Like it's my life. Everything that I basically asked for, everything, you know, when I was looking at that timeline of what I wanted, the timeline I was looking at was this timeline. And through all of those shifts and everything, I'm now on this timeline. And now I'm on a completely new journey. Like a completely new journey. The only way I can just, I'm on this new phase. I feel light. I feel happy. I feel great. And I'm wanting to do stuff again. Like my friend, like literally he's seen me 5 times in the past year. Like he's not seen me many times. And I'm like texting him, God bless him, I love him, he's so patient with me. I was texting him like, right, we need to go to my favorite restaurant and we need to go shopping because I need to get a whole new wardrobe now, and I need to go and you know, we need to go Winter Wonderland this year. I'm so excited for Christmas and we need to do all these things. And he's like, whoa, like I have not seen you much this year. Like, okay. But like, you know, he understands what I've been going through and stuff, but I just feel, the only way I can describe is excited, and I can see a pathway in front of me and I can see where I'm going, but I'm no longer bound to worrying about it. Like, even though I have that pathway, I also am so free spirited in the sense right now that I just am completely mutable. Like I'm open to anything and anything coming and manifesting in the way it needs to, because I'm ready, you know what I mean? And I just feel completely full circle, like completely full circle. And the past month has just been this whole full circle. Like, wow, oh my god, like looking back at this Kundalini Awakening and seeing how it's all kind of like worked itself through. You know, Spirit was telling me the whole way through as well, like, you're going through Kundalini Awakening. I was like, no, I'm not. I didn't want to accept it, but then I finally kind of like accepted it. There were so many things that they were showing me, like, you're going through Kundalini Awakening. I was like, no. But now seeing it from in hindsight and seeing how I cleared everything and how everything had its part to play and everything's come full circle, and now I feel like I've transitioned out of that now. Like, I was literally staring at the birds this morning, and that's when I decided I wanted to film this today, because I was like, wow, I'm coming out of that shell, I'm coming out of that cocoon, I'm shifting again, I'm moving into a new space again. Thank God, because I was waiting for it for a long time. I was like, wow, thank God. And then I, you know, Spirit kind of confirmed to me, like, it's time. Now you can talk about it. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. That's a lot to unpack, but here we are. And that is my Kundalini Awakening story. So in regards to where I'm currently at post Kundalini transformation, it's literally been a couple of months since, like, I guess all of the purging and everything like that stopped, and all of the fatigue and everything stopped. And I went through like a month, like maybe through the month of September, like mostly September, where I basically was just having full circle moment, where I was realizing, kind of looking back in hindsight, how everything pretty much came full circle, and how I really did purge, you know, so much that was holding me down. And I was able to kind of piece together. And like I said, like when I'm reaching the end of a cycle, I usually feel very complete and, you know, ready for the new, and I like to like look out my window and stuff like that. And that was basically all I was doing through the month of September, like literally just looking out my window, feeling so content, feeling so grateful. Like I just knew I was coming out of that phase. And again, like Spirit's been showing me like rainbows and stuff like that to kind of confirm, you know what I mean, that this kind of like phase, all of this purging and all of that is over. Not to say I'll never purge again, not to say I'll never go through shadow work again, because we're always on this cycle. But you know, that kind of like I guess period where I was just isolating, it felt like I was in an egg and just doing inner work after inner work and going through all of that. I do feel that that part of it for now is like completely complete. And as of like right now, obviously, like I'm rubbing my eyes because I haven't long woke up. I just feel like light. Like that's the only way I can feel. Like I can say I feel light. And if you guys follow me on Twitter, like I literally said the other day, through all of that shadow work, I think I've like healed my dislike for the festive period, because I was someone who absolutely hated the festive period. I hated Christmas and things like that, obviously for like family issues and stuff. Like I just didn't like it. And oh my god, like I am so excited for Christmas. I'm so excited for like the festive period. Like I'm the most I'm so excited. And normally like around winter time, like I absolutely hate winter time, and I was really like bracing myself for this winter because last winter was like awful. And normally winter time like my SAD flares up and things like that, but because I've been making sure that I've been keeping my body right and I've been working out so I can work through you know, work off like, you know, the weight that I put on. We could put on a lot of weight in a small amount of time, like because I've been like working out and really cleansing my body. Like I haven't had no flare-ups or anything like that. And I was literally saying to my sister yesterday, like November is usually my worst month. It literally feels like spring for me. Like that's literally how I'm feeling. I feel so light, and I'm kind of like learning the ropes in this new phase. Like I'm asking a lot of stuff. I'm going through my first house perfection year as well right now, so I'm kind of like, you know what, like who am I, like who am I, what do I like where am I going? Like I just feel very fresh. It's almost like I'm building the ego back up in a healthy way, and I'm finding love with old things that I dropped, and like having a new relationship with them and finding new things, because you know I just feel like a new person now. So there's new things that light me up, and finding new routines that work for me and workouts that work for me where I'm not like pushing myself. And yeah, I'm just in this new phase, and that's the update that I wanted to give, because I felt like the update that I filmed wasn't really like representing enough. I think because I'd spoke for 2 hours, like I couldn't really talk about where I'm at like right now. So that's where I'm currently at, and I'm really excited to, you know, be on this new journey now again with all of you guys and take you with me from, you know, getting my health back and all of that. I'm really excited for that chapter. And yeah, and I did want to add as well before I finish that you guys through the last year and a half like have been my rock. Like when everything was upside down, the only thing that gave me any sort of structure was posting content for you guys and posting videos, and just being able to connect to spirit for you guys, even when I was kind of uncertain within myself. Like that always kept me tied to my mission and why I was here. Do you know what I mean? That kept me going, because it was like, this is why I do what I do. Like this is, do you know what I mean? This is why. And without knowing it, whether you've just been supporting me on other platforms or commenting or watching videos or whatever, like you really have been my rock this year and kept me grounded. And that's why I wanted to really go as into depth as I could in this video and talk about this video with you guys, because I wanted to share that with you, because you guys really have helped me through this journey. And yeah, that's why I feel so happy to like bare my soul a little bit and talk about these things. So thank you guys for watching my video. I'm sending you guys all of my love. I really hope that this story time made sense for you. Comment down below if I missed anything out. I hope that you're able to find strength in this video, or find, you know, see yourself in this video, and I hope it helps you in any way, whether you're going through a Kundalini awakening or just another type of an awakening. Like I really hope this video helps you and guides you and finds you well. I'm sending you guys all of my love as always. Comment and like the video if you enjoyed, and yeah, I hope you guys have a beautiful weekend, and I will see you guys next week with some more picker cards.